The issue of voting rights in the United States, specifically the enfranchisement and disenfranchisement of different groups, has been contested throughout United States history. Eligibility to vote in the United States is established both through the federal Constitution and by state law. Several constitutional amendments, the 15th, 19th, and 26th specifically, require that voting rights cannot be abridged on account of race, color, previous condition of servitude, sex, or age for those above 18. The Constitution as originally written did not establish any such rights during 1787 to 1870. In the absence of a specific federal law or constitutional provision, each state is given considerable discretion to establish qualifications for suffrage and candidacy within its own respective jurisdiction. In addition, states and lower-level jurisdictions establish election systems, such as at-large or single-member district elections for county councils or school boards. Beyond qualifications for suffrage, rules and regulations concerning voting, such as the poll tax, have been contested since the advent of Jim Crow laws and related provisions that indirectly disenfranchised racial minorities. Since the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the 24th Amendment to the Constitution, and related laws, voting rights have been legally considered an issue related to election systems. The Supreme Court ruled in 1964 that both houses of all state legislatures had to be based on election districts that were relatively equal in population size, under the one man, one vote principle. In 1972, the court ruled that state legislatures had to redistrict every 10 years based on census results. At that point, many had not redistricted for decades, often leading to a rural bias. In other cases, particularly for county or municipal elections, at-large voting has been repeatedly challenged when found to dilute the voting power of significant minorities in violation of the Voting Rights Act. In the early 20th century, numerous cities established small commission forms of government in the belief that better government could result from the suppression of ward politics. Commissioners were elected by the majority of voters, excluding candidates who could not afford large campaigns or who appealed to a minority. Generally, the solution to such violations has been to adopt single-member districts, SMDs, but alternative election systems, such as limited voting or cumulative voting, have also been used since the late 20th century to correct for dilution of voting power and enable minorities to elect candidates of their choice. The District of Columbia and 5 major territories of the United States have 1 non-voting member each, in the U.S. House of Representatives, and no representation in the U.S. Senate. People in the U.S. territories cannot vote for President of the United States. People in the District of Columbia can vote for the President because of the 23rd Amendment. Background: the United States Constitution did not originally define who was eligible to vote, allowing each state to determine who was eligible. In the early history of the U.S., most states allowed only white male adult property owners to vote. Freed slaves could vote in 4 states. Women were largely prohibited from voting, as were men without property. Women could vote in New Jersey until 1807, provided they could meet the property requirement, and in some local jurisdictions in other northern states. Non-white Americans could also vote in these jurisdictions, provided they could meet the property requirement. By 1856, white men were allowed to vote in all states regardless of property ownership, although requirements for paying tax remained in 5 states. On the other hand, several states, including Pennsylvania and New Jersey, stripped the free black males of the right to vote in the same period. 4 of the 15 post-Civil War constitutional amendments were ratified to extend voting rights to different groups of citizens. These extensions state that voting rights cannot be denied or abridged based on the following: race, color, or previous condition of servitude, 15th Amendment, 1870. On account of sex, 19th Amendment, 1920. By reason of failure to pay any poll tax or other tax for federal elections, 24th Amendment, 1964. Who are 18 years of age or older, to vote, shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age, 26th Amendment, 1971. Following the Reconstruction era until the culmination of the Civil Rights Movement, Jim Crow laws such as literacy tests, poll taxes, and religious tests were some of the state and local laws used in various parts of the United States to deny immigrants, including legal ones and newly naturalized citizens, non-white citizens, Native Americans, and any other locally undesirable groups from exercising voting rights granted under the Constitution. Because of such state and local discriminatory practices, over time, the federal role in elections has increased, through amendments to the Constitution and enacted legislation. These reforms in the 19th and 20th centuries extended the franchise to non-whites, those who do not own property, women, and those 18 to 21 years old. Since the right to vote is not explicitly stated in the U.S. Constitution except in the above referenced amendments, and only in reference to the fact that the franchise cannot be denied or abridged based solely on the aforementioned qualifications, the right to vote is perhaps better understood, in layman's terms, as only prohibiting certain forms of legal discrimination in establishing qualifications for suffrage. States may deny the right to vote for other reasons. For example, many states require eligible citizens to register to vote a set number of days prior to the election in order to vote. More controversial restrictions include those laws that prohibit convicted felons from voting, even those who have served their sentences. Another example, seen in Bush v. Gore, are disputes as to what rules should apply in counting or recounting ballots. A state may choose to fill an office by means other than an election. For example, upon death or resignation of a legislator, the state may allow the affiliated political party to choose a replacement to hold office until the next scheduled election. Such an appointment is often affirmed by the governor. The Constitution, in Article 6, Clause, Paragraph 3, does state that no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Milestones of national franchise changes. Further information. Timeline of voting rights in the United States. 1789, the Constitution grants the states the power to set voting requirements. Generally, states limited this right to property-owning or tax-paying white males, about 6% of the population. 1790, the Naturalization Act of 1790 allows white men born outside of the United States to become citizens with the right to vote. 1792 to 1838, free black males lose the right to vote in several northern states including in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey. 1792 to 1856, abolition of property qualifications for white men, from 1792, Kentucky, to 1856, North Carolina, during the periods of Jeffersonian and Jacksonian democracy. However, tax-paying qualifications remained in 5 states in 1860, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and North Carolina. They survived in Pennsylvania and Rhode Island until the 20th century. 1868, citizenship is guaranteed to all persons born or naturalized in the United States by the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, setting the stage for future expansions to voting rights. 1870, non-white men and freed male slaves are guaranteed the right to vote by the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Disenfranchisement after the Reconstruction era began soon after. Southern states suppressed the voting rights of black and poor white voters through Jim Crow laws. During this period, the Supreme Court generally upheld state efforts to discriminate against racial minorities. Only later in the 20th century were these laws ruled unconstitutional. Black males in the northern states could vote, but the majority of African Americans lived in the South. 1887, citizenship is granted to Native Americans who are willing to disassociate themselves from their tribe by the Dawes Act, making the men technically eligible to vote. 1913, direct election of senators, established by the 17th Amendment to the United States Constitution, gave voters rather than state legislatures the right to elect senators. 1920, women are guaranteed the right to vote by the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. In practice, the same restrictions that hindered the ability of non-white men to vote now also applied to non-white women. 1924, all Native Americans are granted citizenship and the right to vote, regardless of tribal affiliation. By this point, approximately two-thirds of Native Americans were already citizens. 1943, Chinese immigrants given the right to citizenship and the right to vote by the Magnuson Act. 1961, residents of Washington, D.C. are granted the right to vote in U.S. presidential elections by the 23rd Amendment to the United States Constitution. 1964, tax payment prohibited from being used as a condition for voting in federal elections by the 24th Amendment to the United States Constitution. 1965, protection of voter registration and voting for racial minorities, later applied to language minorities, is established by the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This has also been applied to correcting discriminatory election systems and districting. 1966, tax payment and wealth requirements for voting in state elections are prohibited by the Supreme Court in Harper v. Virginia Board of Elections. 1971, adults aged 18 through 21 are granted the right to vote by the 26th Amendment to the United States Constitution. This was enacted in response to Vietnam War protests, which argued that soldiers who were old enough to fight for their country should be granted the right to vote. 1986, United States military and uniformed services, merchant marine, other citizens overseas, living on bases in the United States, abroad, or aboard ship are granted the right to vote by the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act. Removal of exclusions. Each extension of voting rights has been a product of, and also brought about, social change. Extension of voting rights happened through movements and a need for the U.S. to adapt to its growing population. Native American people. From 1778 to 1871, the government tried to resolve its relationship with the various native tribes by negotiating treaties. These treaties formed agreements between two sovereign nations, stating that Native American people were citizens of their tribe, living within the boundaries of the United States. The treaties were negotiated by the executive branch and ratified by the U.S. Senate. It said that native tribes would give up their rights to hunt and live on huge parcels of land that they had inhabited in exchange for trade goods, yearly cash annuity payments, and assurances that no further demands would be made on them. Most often, part of the land would be reserved exclusively for the tribe's use. Throughout the 1800s, many native tribes gradually lost claim to the lands they had inhabited for centuries through the federal government's Indian removal policy to relocate tribes from the southeast and northwest to west of the Mississippi River. European American settlers continued to encroach on western lands. Only in 1879, in the Standing Bear Trial, were American Indians recognized as persons in the eyes of the United States government. Judge Elmer Scipio Dundy of Nebraska declared that Indians were people within the meaning of the laws, and they had the rights associated with the writ of habeas corpus. However, Judge Dundy left unsettled the question as to whether Native Americans were guaranteed U.S. citizenship. Although Native Americans were born within the national boundaries of the United States, those on reservations were considered citizens of their own tribes, rather than of the United States. They were denied the right to vote because they were not considered citizens by law and were thus ineligible. Many Native Americans were told that they would become citizens if they gave up their tribal affiliations in 1887 under the Dawes Act, which allocated communal lands to individual households and was intended to aid in the assimilation of Native Americans into majority culture. This still did not guarantee their right to vote. In 1924, the remaining Native Americans, estimated at about one-third, became United States citizens. But, many Western states continued to restrict Native American ability to vote through property requirements, economic pressures, hiding the polls, and condoning of physical violence against those who voted. Since the late 20th century, they have been protected under provisions of the Voting Rights Act as a racial minority, and in some areas, language minority, gaining election materials in their native languages. Religious test. In several British North American colonies, before and after the 1776 Declaration of Independence, Jews, Quakers, and/or Catholics were excluded from the franchise and/or from running for elections. The Delaware Constitution of 1776 stated that every person who shall be chosen a member of either house, or appointed to any office or place of trust, before taking his seat, or entering upon the execution of his office, shall also make and subscribe the following declaration, to wit, I, A.B. do profess faith in God the Father, and in Jesus Christ his only Son, and in the Holy Ghost, one God, blessed for evermore, and I do acknowledge the Holy Scriptures of the Old and New Testament to be given by divine inspiration. This was repealed by Article I, Section 2. Of the 1792 Constitution, no religious test shall be required as a qualification to any office, or public trust, under this state. The 1778 Constitution of the State of South Carolina stated, no person shall be eligible to sit in the House of Representatives unless he be of the Protestant religion. The 1777 Constitution of the State of Georgia, Art. 6, that the representatives shall be chosen out of the residents in each county, and they shall be of the Protestant religion. With the growth in the number of Baptists in Virginia before the Revolution, who challenged the established Anglican Church, the issues of religious freedom became important to rising leaders such as James Madison. As a young lawyer, he defended Baptist preachers who were not licensed by, and were opposed by, the established state Anglican Church. He carried developing ideas about religious freedom to be incorporated into the Constitutional Convention of the United States. In 1787, Article 1 of the United States Constitution stated that the electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. More significantly, Article 6 disavowed the religious test requirements of several states, saying, "No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States." But, in Maryland, Jewish Americans were excluded from state office until the law requiring candidates to affirm a belief in an afterlife was repealed in 1828. Poor whites and free African Americans. At the time of ratification of the Constitution in the late 18th century, most states had property qualifications which restricted the franchise. The exact amount varied by state, but by some estimates, more than half of white men were disenfranchised. Several states granted suffrage to free men of color after the Revolution, including North Carolina. This fact was noted by Justice Benjamin Robbins Curtis dissent in Dred Scott v. Sandford, 1857, as he emphasized that blacks had been considered citizens at the time the Constitution was ratified. Of this there can be no doubt. At the time of the ratification of the Articles of Confederation, all free native-born inhabitants of the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, and North Carolina, though descended from African slaves, were not only citizens of those states, but such of them as had the other necessary qualifications possessed the franchise of electors, on equal terms with other citizens. In the 1820s, New York State enlarged its franchise to white men by dropping the property qualification, but maintained it for free blacks. The Supreme Court of North Carolina had upheld the ability of free African Americans to vote in that state. In 1835, because of fears of the role of free blacks after Nat Turner's slave rebellion of 1831, they were disenfranchised by decision of the North Carolina Constitutional Convention. At the same time, convention delegates relaxed religious and property qualifications for whites, thus expanding the franchise for them. Alabama entered the Union in 1819 with universal white suffrage provided in its constitution. When the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868 after the Civil War, it granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction. In 1869, the 15th Amendment prohibited the government from denying a citizen the right to vote based on that citizen's race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The major effect of these amendments was to enfranchise African American men, the overwhelming majority of whom were freedmen in the South. After the war, some Southern states passed black codes, state laws to restrict the new freedoms of African Americans. They attempted to control their movement, assembly, working conditions, and other civil rights. Some states also prohibited them from voting. The 15th Amendment to the Constitution, one of 3 ratified after the American Civil War to grant freedmen full rights of citizenship, prevented any state from denying the right to vote to any citizen based on race. This was primarily related to protecting the franchise of freedmen, but it also applied to non-white minorities, such as Mexican Americans in Texas. The state governments under Reconstruction adopted new state constitutions or amendments designed to protect the ability of freedmen to vote. The white resistance to black suffrage after the war regularly erupted into violence as white groups tried to protect their power. Particularly in the South, in the aftermath of the Civil War, whites made efforts to suppress freedmen's voting. In the 1860s, secret vigilante groups such as the Ku Klux Klan, KKK, used violence and intimidation to keep freedmen in a controlled role and re-establish white supremacy. But, black freedmen registered and voted in high numbers, and many were elected to local offices through the 1880s. In the mid-1870s, the insurgencies continued with a rise in more powerful white paramilitary groups, such as the White League, originating in Louisiana in 1874 after a disputed gubernatorial election, and the Red Shirts, originating in Mississippi in 1875 and developing numerous chapters in North and South Carolina, as well as other white line rifle clubs. They operated openly, were more organized than the KKK, and directed their efforts at political goals, to disrupt Republican organizing, turn Republicans out of office, and intimidate or kill blacks to suppress black voting. They worked as the military arm of the Democratic Party. For instance, estimates were that 150 blacks were killed in North Carolina before the 1876 elections. Economic tactics such as eviction from rental housing or termination of employment were also used to suppress the black vote. White Democrats regained power in state legislatures across the South by the late 1870s, and the federal government withdrew its troops as a result of a national compromise related to the presidency, officially ending Reconstruction. African Americans were a majority in 3 southern states following the Civil War, and represented over 40% of the population in 4 other states. While they did not elect a majority of African Americans to office in any state legislature during Reconstruction, whites still feared and resented the political power exercised by freedmen. After ousting the Republicans, whites worked to restore white supremacy. Although elections were often surrounded by violence, blacks continued to vote and gained many local offices in the late 19th century. In the late 19th century, a populist Republican coalition in several states gained governorships and some congressional seats in 1894. To prevent such a coalition from forming again and reduce election violence, the Democratic Party, dominant in all southern state legislatures, took action to disfranchise most blacks and many poor whites outright. From 1890 to 1908, 10 of the 11 former Confederate states completed political suppression and exclusion of these groups by ratifying new constitutions or amendments which incorporated provisions to make voter registration more difficult. These included such requirements as payment of poll taxes, complicated record keeping, complicated timing of registration and length of residency in relation to elections, with related record-keeping requirements, felony disenfranchisement focusing on crimes thought to be committed by African Americans, and a literacy test or comprehension test. Prospective voters had to prove the ability to read and write the English language to white voter registrars, who in practice applied subjective requirements. Blacks were often denied the right to vote on this basis. Even well-educated blacks were often told they had failed such a test, if in fact, it had been administered. On the other hand, illiterate whites were sometimes allowed to vote through a grandfather clause, which waived literacy requirements if one's grandfather had been a qualified voter before 1866, or had served as a soldier, or was from a foreign country. As most blacks had grandfathers who were slaves before 1866 and could not have fulfilled any of those conditions, they could not use the grandfather clause exemption. Selective enforcement of the poll tax was frequently also used to disqualify black and poor white voters. As a result of these measures, at the turn of the century voter rolls dropped markedly across the South. Most blacks and many poor whites were excluded from the political system for decades. Unable to vote, they were also excluded from juries or running for any office. In Alabama, for example, its 1901 Constitution restricted the franchise for poor whites as well as blacks. It contained requirements for payment of cumulative poll taxes, completion of literacy tests, and increased residency at state, county, and precinct levels, effectively disenfranchised tens of thousands of poor whites as well as most blacks. Historian J. Morgan Coser found, they disfranchised these whites as willingly as they deprived blacks of the vote. By 1941, more whites than blacks in total had been disenfranchised. Legal challenges to disfranchisement. Although African Americans quickly began legal challenges to such provisions in the 19th century, it was years before any were successful before the U.S. Supreme Court. Booker T. Washington, better known for his public stance of trying to work within societal constraints of the period at Tuskegee University, secretly helped fund and arrange representation for numerous legal challenges to disfranchisement. He called upon wealthy Northern allies and philanthropists to raise funds for the cause. The Supreme Court's upholding of Mississippi's new Constitution, in Williams v. Mississippi, 1898, encouraged other states to follow the Mississippi Plan of disfranchisement. African Americans brought other legal challenges, as in Giles v. Harris, 1903, and Giles v. Teasley, 1904, but the Supreme Court upheld Alabama constitutional provisions. In 1915, Oklahoma was the last state to append a grandfather clause to its literacy requirement due to Supreme Court cases. From early in the 20th century, the newly established National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, took the lead in organizing or supporting legal challenges to segregation and disfranchisement. Gradually they planned a strategy of which cases to take forward. In Ginn v. United States, 1915, the first case in which the NAACP filed a brief, the Supreme Court struck down the grandfather clause in Oklahoma and Maryland. Other states in which it was used had to retract their legislation as well. The challenge was successful. But, nearly as rapidly as the Supreme Court determined a specific provision was unconstitutional, state legislatures developed new statutes to continue disenfranchisement. For instance, in Smith v. Allwright, 1944, the Supreme Court struck down the use of state-sanctioned all-white primaries by the Democratic Party in the South. States developed new restrictions on black voting. Alabama passed a law giving county registrars more authority as to which questions they asked applicants in comprehension or literacy tests. The NAACP continued with steady progress in legal challenges to disenfranchisement and segregation. In 1957, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1957 to implement the 15th Amendment. It established the United States Civil Rights Commission. Among its duties is to investigate voter discrimination. As late as 1962, programs such as Operation Eagle Eye in Arizona attempted to stymie minority voting through literacy tests. The 24th Amendment was ratified in 1964 to prohibit poll taxes as a condition of voter registration and voting in federal elections. Many states continued to use them in state elections as a means of reducing the number of voters. The American Civil Rights Movement, through such events as the Selma to Montgomery marches and Freedom Summer in Mississippi, gained passage by the United States Congress of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which authorized federal oversight of voter registration and election practices and other enforcement of voting rights. Congress passed the legislation because it found case-by-case litigation was inadequate to combat widespread and persistent discrimination in voting. Activism by African Americans helped secure an expanded and protected franchise that has benefited all Americans, including racial and language minorities. The bill provided for federal oversight, if necessary, to ensure just voter registration and election procedures. The rate of African American registration and voting in southern states climbed dramatically and quickly, but it has taken years of federal oversight to work out the processes and overcome local resistance. In addition, it was not until the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in Harper v. Virginia Board of Elections, 1966, that all state poll taxes, for state elections, were officially declared unconstitutional as violating the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. This removed a burden on the poor. Legal challenges have continued under the Voting Rights Act, primarily in areas of redistricting and election systems, for instance, challenging at-large election systems that effectively reduce the ability of minority groups to elect candidates of their choice. Such challenges have particularly occurred at the county and municipal level, including for school boards, where exclusion of minority groups and candidates at such levels has been persistent in some areas of the country. This reduces the ability of women and minorities to participate in the political system and gain entry-level experience. Women. A parallel, yet separate, movement was that for women's suffrage. Leaders of the suffrage movement included Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Alice Paul. In some ways this, too, could be said to have grown out of the American Civil War, as women had been strong leaders of the abolition movement. Middle and upper-class women generally became more politically active in the Northern Tier during and after the war. In 1848, the Seneca Falls Convention, the first women's rights convention, was held in Seneca Falls, New York. Of the 300 present, 68 women and 32 men signed the Declaration of Sentiments which define the women's rights movement. The first National Women's Rights Convention took place in 1850 in Worcester, Massachusetts, attracting more than 1,000 participants. This national convention was held yearly through 1860. When Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton formed the National Women's Suffrage Association, their goal was to help women gain voting rights through reliance on the Constitution. Also, in 1869 Lucy Stone and Henry Blackwell formed the American Woman Suffrage Association, AWSA. However, AWSA focused on gaining voting rights for women through the amendment process. Although these two organizations were fighting for the same cause, it was not until 1890 that they merged to form the National American Woman Suffrage Association, NAWSA. After the merger of the two organizations, the NAWSA waged a state-by-state campaign to obtain voting rights for women. Wyoming was the first state in which women were able to vote, although it was a condition of the transition to statehood. Utah was the second territory to allow women to vote, but the federal Edmunds-Tucker Act of 1887 repealed women's suffrage in Utah. Colorado was the first establishing.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.